across the distance, across the screen, I should say. You are with First Christian Church and Disciples of Christ in Concord, California, and we are so glad that you are here. Whether you have been with us for a long, long time or you're just finding us online, we are so glad that you're here, and you, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your journey, you are always welcome to be with us. So with that, Carrie, can you let us know what we need to know about this morning?
Yeah, so I think most of us are used to Zoom now and how we do these things, but just in case, I wanted to let you know we are recording this and it's being streamed live to Facebook. So if you want to be seen, go ahead and put your video up. But if you don't, you can turn off your video, and we've muted everybody just for sound quality, but you can unmute yourself by hitting the space bar on your computer, like a walkie-talkie. When you press it down, you can speak, and then when you take your finger off, it will release. And same if you're on the phone, you can *6 to unmute yourself and then mute yourself again. And we just want to remind everyone, we love it when you engage. We have a great chat going on where you can say hi to your friends and give encouragement. We definitely want you to use that and spend some time with your friends this morning. And then also in First Christian Church, we really strive to use inclusive language for God and for people. And you can see here in a lot of the music, the people who have put out the music will use he for God, but when we have written it out in the slides, it will say God will renew our strength. So we just want to really bear witness to the fact that God is all things to all people, so we want to make sure that we use inclusive language. So that's how we will do that during our service. But hope you guys have a great worship service, and we'll see you on the other side of the song.
Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. And here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether
I saw Pastor Leslie. She got caught like me. My music was a little bit slower than everybody else's. I was still singing when the page came back up. All right, this is the time of our service where we do signs of life. Sign of life is where you've seen God show up this week. I invite you to definitely share with us where you've seen that happen. You can unmute yourself. I'll go ahead and share first while you're all thinking. But as you guys know, I've not been feeling well. And Monday, I got an antibiotic from my doctor, and I feel so much better. So I'm very, very thankful for modern medicine and for the miracle of antibiotics and how God shows up for that, for me in that. And thank you so much for your prayers. That's also a sign of life, how you guys have loved and cared for me when I've been sick. Anyone else want to share? Yay, Renee, go.
This week has been pivotal for me. The salon industry is really being hurt, and we're losing a lot of people who are going out of business, and we have really rallied together. And this week, finally, I feel like I'm being heard, and we've been able to do rallies, and we've been able to get into the press, and people are taking notice, and we're really hoping that we're being seen as the professionals that we are instead of just a hair cutter. And it's just a phenomenal thing, and it's amazing how it lifts your spirit to really be heard and feel alive again. It's it's definitely a God.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw that you were in the newspaper. That's awesome. Getting the word out. All right, anybody else? Yes, Lynn.
This week was Linda's birthday, and we took a lovely trip to Muir Woods.
Oh, nice.
And boy, there's nothing like it when it comes to feeling the sense of overwhelming Almighty and just the natural beauty of the world. So I'd encourage anyone to make reservations and go. It wasn't overly crowded. It was comfortable, and you could feel safe. And it was also made possible by the fact that Andy Raymond came to take care of our dogs, which we really appreciated. And for anyone who ever needs a pet sitter, I highly recommend her.
Oh, that's wonderful. God is wherever we go, but certainly in those majestic woods. It really reminds you of God's presence. Anyone else have anything to share? Yeah, Diana.
I got contacted last week by an old friend. We've been friends since about sixth grade. One of those friends that you can pick up the conversation about how long it's been, and it just keeps, picks up where it left off. And then later on that day, I went to my mother-in-law's house, Judy, and sitting on her counter was a picture of that friend. So I feel like God was just, because he's very ill. He's got AIDS, and he's probably near the end of his life cycle. And that's what he was reaching out to tell me. And then to have his face on her counter, just, and it's been sitting beside my computer ever since. So I just felt like God was in that,
Yes, totally. I love that. Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to invite Tim to open us up with the call to worship.
But before we do that, though, Diana, what is your friend's name so we can add him to the prayer list?
I think I added him last week. His name is Michael.
Michael. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. When our spirits are restless and unsettled, when peace is nowhere to be found, the grace of God wraps around us. We do not rush through periods of darkness, but welcome their gifts that transform. In seasons of despair, truth comes to wrestle with us. In silence, honesty voices its concerns. From the unknowns that surround, possibilities emerge. Courage calls us to linger patiently in discomfort. In the light of day and the dark of night, God is with us. Thanks be to God who upholds us in love. Will you pray with me? God, you see us. You see our struggles. You see our difficulties. You see our possibilities. You see our promise. Connect the dots for us, O God. Soften the hard spots with your blessing. Call us in wandering to hear you say our names. Satisfy our longings, for you are good, God, a God present in the scramble, and in the end, you always, always have a blessing. For this and so much more, we give you thanks through Jesus Christ. Amen. Lighting a candle is a prayer. When we move away, it remains lit. Continuing our prayers of thanksgiving and intercession for those in need. Lighting a candle is a parable. Burning itself out, it gives light to others. Lighting a candle is a symbol of love and hope, of light and warmth. Our world needs them all. As this next song plays, please light your candles and give light and hope to your prayers.
It haunts me so, this gloomy weight that comes and goes without a trace. 1,000 times my flesh embrace, 1,000 more, but all sin's early gates of the land. And what was once a pearl, now sand that blows away, that blows away in light of hell. When battle lines become unclear and the waging war is all I hear, Lord, sustain me with your voice and the choice to walk in truth, to see the Lord, the promised land, wherein all sin's pearly gates look the land. And what was once a pearl, now sand that blows away, that blows away in light of hell. That I might see this day, this waging war might go away and be no more. That I might see his face and hear him say, son, welcome home, the war is over. To see the Lord, the promised land, wherein all sin's pearly gates look the land. And what was once a pearl, now sand that blows away, that blows away, that blows away light of hell. Oh, go away, oh, go away, go away light of hell. Oh, blow away, oh, waging war of sin.
Amen. Will you join me in prayer? God is present to us, but we don't always feel it. God is good to us, but we can't always accept it. The fact is, there are many things within us and around us that attempt to step between us and our relationship with God's goodness. There are things that we think, things that we do, things that we believe, things that we hold on to, things that we value, that act to separate us from God. Lord, in your mercy, hear us as we seek to wrestle with these things, as we seek to do better, as we seek to get closer to you, as we seek a new relationship, not just with you, but also with one another, as we seek a deeper relationship, a deeper love with ourselves. Lord, sometimes it is so hard to just love ourselves. And so we know that sometimes when we wrestle, it's outside forces, but more often than not, we're wrestling within our own selves. We wrestle with our own insecurities. We wrestle with our own hang-ups, with our own stuff. And so be with us. Be with us. Oh God, there are so many things that are happening in this world right now that we need you. We need you to come and wrestle with our hearts and move us to do something different. Help us to make the world better right where we are. We can't change everything, but we can change a little bit. So help us to have the courage and the strength and the fortitude and the faith to do what we can. Hear us as we lift up to you the joys and the concerns of our hearts and of our minds. Feel free to continue to write your prayer request in the chat, and Carrie and I will get those after church and make sure that they're in the bulletin for next week. If there's something that you just want the elders or me to know, that's fine too. Just in the search bar, type in or look for Carrie's name or my name, and it'll be a private message to either of us. Feel free to unmute and speak aloud those names or those concerns, those joys, as well as those concerns that you have right now.
Larry Moonen and Max Cook.
And Garrick and her family. Lori.
Yeah, desire.
Pray for Donna Buell.
Rick Moore, David Moore, Joan Ludlam.
Bobby Andrews and Chris Hillary.
Uncle Bill.
The DeBoer
Bill
family.
Bush.
John.
Kathy.
Yeah.
Can't hear it.
Shonay and Lori and Gerald as they seek to get us new money. The day breaks and God does not let us go. The hour calls and God does not let us go. The evening falls and God holds us fast. Let us always turn to God in prayer, a God who never turns from us. We ask all these things and so much more in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus the Christ, who taught us to pray, our Creator, who is in heaven. Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever and ever. Amen. Normally we would hear from Jacob right about now, but the kids are taking the Sunday off and Jacob is getting his new place all settled in. So we are grateful for him and are glad to be able to give Jacob and the kids a Sunday off so that they can all do what they need to do. But now it is our time in our service where we have an opportunity to give back to God a portion of that which has been given to us. If we have been convinced that love is the way, and that God provides what we need to live righteously, and that no gift is too small, let us bring our offerings together. When resources were short, did Christ worry? No. Christ saw all the gifts, and Christ multiplied them. This is the miracle we witness every single time we give to the church. God will take what we have, and God will do good things with it. And you are invited to give and even to participate in the miracle of God's multiplying acts. We used to sing a song that says, "You can't beat God giving." So in gratitude and with faith, we share what we have in community. Remember that if you are writing a check, to add attention Lisa Morgan on the envelope when you mail it to the church. If you are doing the online bill pay option, again, put in attention Lisa Morgan, and that way we know that that is an envelope that goes to Lisa. Lisa's the only one who will ever see see the contents of those envelopes. This is our last week for right now, collecting an extra offering for the community of the Great Commission. As you know, since camp is not happening this summer, but camp expenses continue, just like church expenses continue. The camp is going to face a really significant deficit. So if we can help alleviate a part of that deficit, we want to be able to do that. So if you'd like to make an extra contribution to Community of the Great Commission, make your check out to the church, but in your memo line, put Community of the Great Commission. That way, Lisa knows what part is your offering and what part goes to the offering for the church and what part goes to the offering for Community of the Great Commission. And I think we're going to be sending a check this week, I believe, for all that we have collected during the month of July. So as Scott shares in Christ Alone by Lauren Daigle, let us give. Let us prepare our offerings and give generously to our mission and ministry.
Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are still, when striving cease, my comforter, my all in all. Here in the love of Christ I stand. Oh, 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 oh. no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, oh, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hands till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I stand till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand.
One of the things that Chris just wrote in the chat is that camp was free this week for the kids because it was all virtual. And tonight is their talent show. So that's just another reason why we need to help offset this cost for Camp Christian, or not Camp Christian, that's in Ohio, Community of the Great Commission. Sorry about that. Let us pray. Spirit of transformation, come and bless these offerings to the work of your love. As forces of evil and empire work to kindle the fear in us, embolden our faith. Make us persistent, determined, and resolute in the way of life. Trusting your hand to uphold us, we endeavored to struggle against injustice within and around. May this act of giving bring about change. Change in our lives, change in the lives we touch, and change in the systems that harm. Amen.
Today's scripture is from Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 to 31. Jacob got up during the night, took the entire caravan, his 2 wives, his 2 women servants, his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River shallow water. He took them and everything that belonged to him, and he helped them cross the river. But Jacob stayed apart by himself, and someone wrestled with Jacob until dawn broke. Seeing that Jacob could not be overpowered, the other grabbed Jacob's thigh and tore a muscle in Jacob's thigh as they wrestled with each other. Jacob's contender said, "Let me go because the dawn is breaking." But Jacob said, "I won't let you go until you bless me." "What is your name?" the other asked. And he said, "Jacob." The other said, "Your name won't be Jacob or heel grabber any longer, but Israel, because you have wrestled with both God and mortals, and you have prevailed." Jacob also asked and said, "Tell me your name." But the other said, "Why do you ask for my name?" and blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, because I've seen God face to face, and my life has been saved. The sun rose as Jacob passed Peniel, limping because of his thigh.
I switched to the page so I could read and then forgot to unmute myself. All right. One of the challenging things about preaching from a very familiar text is to bring new life and new insights to it. We have been following this family for several weeks, and we've been dealing with the challenging times in our own country at the same time. Today, I want to talk with you a little bit about wrestling with blessing. Now, the sermon is going to be a little bit long because I couldn't figure out how to cut it in different places, so just bear with me. So how do we understand forgiveness and grace? How do we wrestle with the concerns of the world right now? And how do you define blessing? Jacob has done some shady things in his life, and now Jacob is struggling with the inner demons of a guilty conscience. He's heading home after 20 years since he's seen his brother Esau, 20 years since he has seen his parents. Now he's married with children. He's got 11 sons and one named daughter, Dinah, who's not in the scripture but is already born. And those 12 children are identified. Benjamin is not yet born. Those 12 children are identified. We don't know how many children he actually had with his other servants, but he has male and female servants, he has livestock, and he's ready to see his brother Esau. Now, he's not at all sure if Esau has forgiven him for stealing his blessing, but he's trying to get ready. Barbara Brown Taylor, who's just a fabulous preacher and pastor and an Episcopal priest, describes something of Jacob's state of mind as he anticipates Esau's anger. Jacob had changed, he thought, but Jacob could not imagine that Esau had changed. Perhaps Jacob had developed enough of a conscience to realize that his brother has every right to feel anger at the return of the one who has stolen everything from him. So in preparation for the meeting, Jacob does two things. First, he sends his messengers to Esau to let Esau know that Jacob wants to come home. When Jacob learns that Esau is coming with 400 men, he sends half of his belongings as a gift to Esau, along with Rachel and Leah, his wives and his children. He sends them along with his servants, and he puts them in what could potentially be mortal danger. He's using them as sort of a human shield between he and his brother and the 400 people he sent ahead. But Jacob is not, he's not unintelligent. So Jacob still protects half of his wealth because he holds back half of it. So just in case things don't go as well as he hopes, he still has half of his money, half of his wealth, half of his belongings. The second thing he does is he goes away by himself to pray and to have a little talk with God. Here, almost home, Jacob offers a humble prayer, asking God to protect him and admitting that he is not worthy of all of the love and all of the faithfulness that God has shown him. Jacob is still negotiating to get his way, but this time he's negotiating with God. Jacob has to face the music of his past. He has to face his brother. Well, Esau is not like Jacob. Esau has forgiven Jacob. And there's an important lesson about forgiveness that I have learned over the years. To forgive doesn't mean to forget. Forgetting what someone did to you to cause you harm or hurt leaves you open to be hurt again. However, forgiveness does not ignore the wrong done to you. Forgiving a person means not letting their actions have control or power over you anymore. When we hold on to hurt and pain and resentment and anger, it harms us far more than it will ever harm the offender. The one who caused us harm or hurt may not even realize what they have done. Most people, not all, most people mean well. Most people have good intentions. Most people don't do terrible things knowingly. More often than not, when we do harm, it's because we don't realize that it's harmful at the time. But forgiveness is for us. It's not for the one who hurt us. Forgiveness frees us to live in the beauty of today. It allows us and frees us to live in the present. Reliving the wrongs that have been done to us keeps us living in the past and missing out on opportunities for today. Forgiveness allows us to move on without anger or contempt or seeking revenge. Esau, we will learn, has forgiven Jacob. But who are the Esau's in your life? Who have you wronged? When have you been Esau? Who has wronged you? Who do you need to forgive so that you can live a changed and transformed life? Well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Jacob is afraid that Esau might still be angry and would, as I said earlier, would have every right to be. So Jacob goes down to the river to pray, and as is typical of his family's response in the past, hope his scheme to get back into his brother's good graces might work so that he could get back home. So he prays and he tries to take things into his own hands. Generally, as we know from this family's history, that doesn't generally work out very well. But he gets a bit of a surprise when he gets down there. While he is all alone in the night, making sure he has protected half of his wealth just in case he needs to make a fast getaway, he wrestles. He wrestles with his conscience. He wrestles with a divine being. He wrestles. We don't know who the being is, but I'm going to say grace comes to wrestle with Jacob. Love comes to wrestle with Jacob. The purpose of this wrestling is not to destroy Jacob, but to transform. Whether Jacob's night lasted only a few hours or is in fact the night that lasts days and weeks or months long, we don't know. But the wrestling and the struggle he was so engaged in with either God or God's messenger has now changed him. He went into the night with one identity, one way of being, one sort of reality, and he came out with another. But before the blessing at dawn, the wrestling he had to deal with was intense and painful and exhausting. We know a little bit about that. We too struggle with God, individually and collectively. We think, for example, of Elie Wiesel and the anguished and angry questions he had for God about the terrible suffering of the Jewish people. We think about other folks like my ancestors, about the slaves who were carried off, the enslaved people who were carried off, sold, and considered property by good Bible-reading Christians, or our LGBTQ siblings who have suffered at the hands of religious institutions that lose sight of the heart of God's justice and compassion and focus instead on their own power and preservation. We struggle in our own personal lives with illness and financial uncertainty, with personal disasters and broken relationships, and most of all, with the suffering of those we love. In times like these, fraught with poisonous political divisions, it used to not be like this, you all. It used to be fun to have political debates. Now we hurt each other. And we are in the midst of a raging pandemic that is exacting enormous physical and economic tolls on each and every one of us. We have our communal questions for God. We hear the families we feel the distress of the families that are torn apart by deportation. from a desperate parent who saw our country as their best hope for a decent life. That's what we used to be. We witnessed the suffering and deaths of people, of the most vulnerable people, of the people who are most vulnerable to coronavirus, which disproportionately ravages communities of people of color, the elderly and the poor. We watch feeling helpless as the most vulnerable in our society and in our midst suffer needlessly. People are unable to pay rent, buy groceries, or take care of other essential needs. They're afraid to go to the doctor because they don't want to get sick, but they're also afraid to go to the doctor because they may not have health insurance and they don't know how it's going to get paid for. Our country has been brought to its knees by this disease. Each day, the splits we have between us grow ever wider and uglier. And we are perplexed by how we will ever address the challenges with which we must struggle, including the suffering of the earth itself and all of its creatures, all of its animals. At our mercy, all of the earth itself is at our mercy, all of the animals are at our mercy, but they receive very little of it. Of course, there are all the other problems that we deal with regularly: racism and hatred, sexism and misogyny, violence and injustice, prejudice and the abuse of power, militaristic posturing, and environmental destruction, some of which are all swirled together in this toxic brew as they all churn through our lives, our shared lives, and shape them in ways that we deplore. This is not who we used to be. We need to do better. We need to be better. Often the pain of God's children and God's creation will keep us awake at night and struggling with God, wrestling with God. How does God come and wrestle with these systems and norms through each and every one of us? God always comes to us through one another. When we see one another, we see the face of God. Finally, what do we understand about blessing? Blessing is a gift of God's grace and protection. Grace is the free and unmerited favor of God, as manifested in the love of God for all of humanity and the bestowal of blessings. Jacob's larger story, not just this week's short excerpt of it, is persistently about blessing. The whole family's story is about blessing and undeserved grace. In addition to the blessing God promises him, Jacob has already stolen one from his brother and now demands another one from this stranger and gets it. I get frustrated by things like this, but Jacob and his visitor wrestle all night long, almost until dawn, without a clear winner. But before the end, Jacob asks the name of the one with whom he has been wrestling. The significance of insisting on knowing the entity's name is ancient, because even we know and feel that names have a kind of power. And in those days, when words meant even more, knowing the night visitor's name was to obtain a measure of control over it. In the Bible, when demons ask Jesus, what is his name, or they call out his name, they are trying to capture a little bit of power over Jesus. The visitor resorts to crippling Jacob by striking his hip. And still, Jacob will not let go. Terence Fretheim sees the meaning in this visitor's insistence on leaving before the light of day, because of the awful risk of Jacob of seeing God face to face. It was believed that if anyone ever saw the face of God, they would die immediately. And yet, that's what happens. If we are to believe Jacob, that is, he names the place Peniel, the face of God, because he says, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved. Both Jacob and the place of the struggle are given new names, and Jacob's new name, Israel, is given to his descendants as well. His descendants will also struggle with God. You and I are his descendants. We struggle with God as well. By the time these stories are fashioned into a narrative of God's people, Gene Tucker, another commentator, writes, the people of Israel, just like their patronymic ancestor, have striven with powers both human and divine, and in the time of the monarchy, knew that they had prevailed and had been blessed. Jacob then sees the face of God again, not just in the wrestling with the stranger, but this time in his brother, his former enemy, who accepts and forgives him. Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Jacob's response in seeing Esau, the face of God, shows just how far he has come. As Jacob had seen in the face of God in the struggle of and reconciliation with the wrestler, so Jacob sees the face of God in the face of his reconciled enemy and brother who had sought to kill him. In both cases, Jacob encounters the beloved enemy, one human and one divine, and emerges from the struggle with greater blessings and more abundant life. What are these days calling for us to ask about ourselves? What are we being called to wrestle with? And what might we see so that we might see ourselves more clearly, that we might be able to transform into people able to better love other people and love the resources in our lives? Will we be willing to wrestle with blessing? Amen.
Great is your faithfulness, oh God. You wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Great is your love and justice, God. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation, and all your people sing along. So remember your people, Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. Heaven reaching down to us. Your grace is enough for me. God, I see your grace is enough. I'm covered in your love. Your grace is enough for me. For me.
As we just heard in the sermon, even though Jacob's a bit of a scoundrel, God continues to bless his life. Jacob's life is not without challenges, to be sure, but no matter how many mistakes he makes, God's grace continues to be boundless. Most of us are not quite as cunning or courageous, perhaps, as Jacob, but we're also not so different from him either in our ability to make life difficult for ourselves by wrestling with God. As we gather together today for communion together, we too encounter God's abundant grace and blessings poured out for us through Christ Jesus. Let's join together now in celebration of this holy feast, secure in the knowledge that God is with us in all things. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, your everlasting love and grace gives us strength to carry on, even when we feel overwhelmed by the endless wrestling match of life. As we gather together to partake of the emblems of communion, we ask that you continue to bless our lives with the strength to live faithfully in your presence and the courage to be your servants in the world. All these things we ask in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it, and he said, "This is my body that is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he took the cup after supper, and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." Please feel free to use any elements that you have. The most important thing is that we simply share this meal together. Come, let's partake of the goodness of God.
All who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life. All who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life. Table of life. Come to me, all who need rest, and be satisfied. All who are weary will find that my burden is light. For the bread that I give will not perish, but will bring you life. Yeah. All who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life. Table of life. The bread that I break is my flesh. Take and eat. This cup now poured out is my blood for a world in need. I lay down my life so you might come and follow me. Yeah, all who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life. Yeah. So dance now with joy before God, 'cause mercy runs free. The mountains will break into song for a mighty King. Oh, the trees will clap hands for our God. God is great indeed. Yeah. All who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life. Table of life. Oh, oh. All who thirst, come to the water. All who hunger, eat without price. Why spend your wages on what fails to satisfy? Come to the table of life.
Amen. Amen. Before we get to the announcements, however, there's something that we have been neglecting to do, and so I want to reintroduce it. And that is, if any of you who are not already members of the church would like to join the church, this is the doors of the church are open, and we would like you to officially be a part of us. And so if you have not already done so, and you would like to talk with us about what membership might look like and what it means, especially in this virtual way, if you've not been baptized and you'd like to be baptized, again, let us know that. You can put it in the chat. You can write it to either Carrie or me privately. But let us know if you'd like to be a member, and if you, or if you've not been baptized, if you'd like to be baptized. And we want you to know that you are a part of us, and we just want to welcome you fully into the family if that is something that you'd like to do. So if you're struggling, come and struggle with us. All right, Carrie.
Awesome. All right, just a couple of announcements this morning. Of course, everything's in the Intersections. We have a lot of information there. Our Intersections is our weekly newsletter that comes by email. If you are not on that email list, please email Andy and let her know you want to be added to the Intersections email, and she'll make sure that happens. But that's a great way to keep up with what's going on in the church. You can also follow us on all these ways. I'm using my cursor, but I know you guys can't see that. All these ways here on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can follow along with what's going on with us, or visit our website. And also, we mentioned Padlet at the beginning. That's a place where you can, if you happen to have an extra washer or dryer that you're trying to get rid of, you can put it there, and people who might need one can let you know from there. But it's the website address is down the bottom. Check it out. Announcements. The Epiphany team has a meeting coming up on Tuesday at 7. So if you're a part of the Epiphany team, just know you'll be using the same Zoom link as we do for worship. Our summer book study is still going strong. We're studying White Fragility, and that's Wednesdays from 7 to 8:30. It's been a really great discussion. We're just still in chapter 2, so if you want to catch up, it's still possible, but let Pastor Leslie know so you can get the email in advance to get the questions. And then please, we would love for you guys to stay a little bit after today. We're doing a Q&A. Most of you should have received the email about the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is a chance where you can ask your questions of Chone and Greg and Lori. So please stay after. Pastor is going to put us into different breakout rooms so we can ask questions, but we would love for you to stay and ask those questions. Please be a part of that.
And that is in preparation for our congregational meeting next week, which will happen right after church as well. So let's hear the benediction, and then we'll sing, and then I will put you in breakout rooms. God sends us into the world to wrestle with evil, confronting injustice all around us, searching our own hearts for untruths and narrow perceptions. We seek to transform and to be transformed. With love as our guide, let us go bravely out to live out our faith. The Spirit leads us in peace. Go in peace and love and joy to serve the Lord. God be with you.
Amen.
That I will follow is all I can say.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.